Hello, everyone, and welcome to another presentation of Equitable Services on behalf of the Tennessee Department of Education. My name is Danny Bounds, and I'm the Federal Programs Ombudsman in the Division of Federal Programs and Oversight. Today, I will be speaking to you about equitable services to non-public schools, specifically speaking on Title III, Part A. Now, as we always give information out to the public, on behalf of the Tennessee Department of Education, we always like to talk about our strategic plan and how it guides all of our practice daily. Our strategic plan is known for Best for All, where we set all students on a path of success. The three components of our strategic plan is academics, educators, and student readiness. Here's our agenda for today. First, we will be discussing an overview of Title III, Part A. Second, we'll be discussing the most important piece of equitable services, and that is meaningful consultation. After that, we'll talk about fiscal considerations and then the complaint process. Next, we will discuss some things that districts always have questions about, and that's what activities are eligible, and also the frequently asked questions from the field. Next, we'll discuss popular scenarios that are usually brought up when it comes to Title III, Part A. And lastly, we'll discuss and provide resources on how to find good resources for Title III, Part A. Now, here's an overview of equitable services for Title III, Part A. Under the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, also known as ESEA, as authorized by the Every Student Succeeds Act, also known as ESSA or ESSA, there are a number of programs that require equitable participation of non-public school students and teachers. Now, many people understand these programs as our title programs, and the services under these programs are provided to non-public school students, their teachers, and other educational personnel. These services are considered assistance to students and teachers rather than the non-public school themselves. So again, like Title I, Title II, and today what we're discussing, Title III. Under Title III, Part A, also known as Title III, it provides language instruction for English learners and immigrant students, and it is one of the programs that requires equitable participation by non-public school students, teachers, and other educational personnel. Now, it should be noted that the provision for Title III includes services and benefits, not funds, designed and implemented by the district in consultation with non-public school officials to meet the needs of teachers and non-public school students. The Title III program is subject to equitable services requirements in the uniform provisions of ESSA. And these requirements apply to districts awarded subgrants under the Title III English Learner State Grants. Now let's discuss, again, the most important aspect of equitable services, and that is consultation. So what is consultation under Title III? Under ESSA, districts must consult with appropriate non-public school officials during the design, development, and implementation of the professional development program on issues including how the needs of children and teachers will be identified, what services will be offered, and how, where, and by whom the services will be provided. Additionally, districts must consult with appropriate non-public school officials on other issues such as how the services will be assessed, and how the results of that assessment will be used to improve those services, the size and scope of the equitable services, the amount of funds available for those services, and last but not least, how and when the district will make decisions about the delivery of services. So, what should you discuss in a meeting with a non-public school? And so there are many different topics that should be expanded upon so that there's a better understanding of how to provide equitable services. And so the topics subject to consultation have also been expanded to include the following: how the amount of funds available for equitable services is determined, whether the district responsible for providing equitable services will provide those services directly or through a separate district or through a third-party contractor. Also, whether to provide equitable services to eligible non-public school participants can be used by creating a pool or pools of funds with all the funds allocated under the programs covered under ESSA, or on a school-by-school basis, which will be based upon the proportionate share of funds available to provide student services in each school. Also, consultation on the delivery of services must include thorough consideration and analysis of the views of the non-public school officials on the provision of contracted services through potential third-party providers. Again, if you need more details on meaningful consultation, please be sure to check out the Equitable Services Overview webinar, which was released earlier this year. In that webinar, it will discuss more in detail what it means to have meaningful consultation with a non-public school on all titles. Now, let's discuss the fiscal considerations when it comes to Title III Part A. The district must always, and when we say always, we mean always, maintain control of the program funds, as well as title to all materials, equipment, and property purchased with federal funds. Now, only the district may obligate and expend federal funds on behalf of the non-public school students and teachers. So all funds must go through the school district, not the non-public school. And the options for expending funds should be at the request of the non-public school officials, and that the district may also pool funds for 2 or more non-public schools and teachers in those non-public schools. Funds allocated to a district for educational services and other benefits to eligible non-public school children, teachers, and other educational personnel and families must be obligated in the fiscal year for which the funds are received by the district. Now, there are some extenuating circumstances, and that is when funds not obligated are available for equitable services in the subsequent school year. So that means that it will be carryover into the next school year if they're not obligated by the fiscal year. Title III Part A funds may not be used to finance the existing level of instruction in a non-public school. So that means that the services under Title III Part A must supplement, not supplant, the federal, state, or local funds that the non-public school would otherwise offer absent the Title III program. Now let's go over the complaint process under Title III Part A. Pursuant to ESSA Section 1117 and 8501, as amended by ESSA, a non-public school official has the right to file a written complaint with the State Educational Department Ombudsman, asserting that the LEA or the district did not engage in consultation that was meaningful and timely, that the district did not give due consideration to the views of the non-public school, or that the district did not make a decision that treats non-public school students equitably. Now, if a non-public school officials believe that timely and meaningful consultation did not occur, then first they should discuss this with the district. Then, if needed, and there can be no resolution with the district, that is when they will file a complaint with the state's ombudsman, also known as the Federal Programs Ombudsman. In the event that the issue is unresolved, the non-public school officials have the right to file a formal written complaint to the Federal Programs Ombudsman. And that formal complaint must include, 1, a statement that a violation of the equitable services requirement has taken place, 2, the facts on which the statement is based, and 3, the signature of the complainant, or also known as the non-public school official. If you need more information on the complaint process or the procedures, you can look at this complaint form that is available in TDOE resources. Here, you'll be able to see all the steps required for the complaint process that would be filed to the state's ombudsman. Once a complaint is completed by the non-public school official, it must be signed by the individuals or the organizations filing the complaint. And after that complaint is completed and signed, the non-public official must submit the complaint as well as any additional documentation via email to the Federal Programs Ombudsman, which is myself, with the district representative copied on that email. Once the district receives the signed complaint, the district must upload that complaint to this year's LEA document library in the applicable programs Equitable Services complaint folder. For more information about the complaint process and other Equitable Services topics, you can look in TDOE resources under ePlan at this link below. Also, if you need more information, please feel free to look at the ESSA Equitable Services Overview webinar, which goes into, again, more detail about the complaint process for all title programs, including Title III Part A. So now, how do we discover if activities are eligible under Title III Part A? Some examples of the Title III services that a LEA may provide to non-public school ELs or English learners, their teachers, and other educational personnel can include administration of an English language proficiency test or assessment for identification and or the purpose of evaluating the effectiveness of services, which includes test booklets, teacher training, or stipends to teachers to administer assessments. It could also include participation in district-sponsored professional development. Additional examples can include participation in professional development organized specifically to meet the needs of the non-public school teachers, tutoring for students before, during, or after school hours, participation on non-public school English learners in summer school, participation of students in weekend programs, and purchasing of supplemental instructional materials and supplies. Now, when it comes to the assessment clarification, it must be noted that Title III does not require LEAs or districts to administer their state's annual English learner assessment for identified English learners in non-public schools. Districts are required under Title VIII to consult with the non-public schools officials regarding how the Title III services provided to non-public schools and teachers will be assessed and how the results of the assessment will be used to improve those services. A district may use Title III funds to pay for initial EL assessments for non-public school students in cases where the use of funds would not supplant other federal, state, and local funds that may be used for such purposes. Use of any assessments should be determined through timely and meaningful consultation. Now, the district is ultimately responsible for covering the cost of administering these assessments, and the district and the non-public school officials are advised to ensure that EL assessments are the most appropriate instruments to administer to the target students and valid and reliable for those students. Now, let's discuss the Title III review. Reflection time. What do you think is the overall purpose of Title III when it comes to providing equitable services to non-public schools? Take some time, think about it. Great. Now that you've had time to reflect, we're going to give you a quiz. So, if you could scan this QR code for access, or if you're watching this on Microsoft Stream, you will be able to see the quiz pop up immediately after this slide. Feel free and see and take a review of what we discussed already today. I'll leave the screen up for a little bit so you can scan the code. All right. Hopefully you did well on the quiz. Well, now that we have had the opportunity to review Title III Part A, let's discuss some frequently asked questions from the field. Question 1. Is citizenship, immigration status, or residency of a student enrolled in a non-public school relevant to whether the student is eligible to receive Title III services? The answer is no. A student's citizenship, immigration status, or residency are not relevant to determining eligibility for Title III services. Here's another one. If a district contracts with a third party to provide Title III services to ELs enrolled in a non-public school, must a teacher who is employed by this third party meet the language fluency requirements in ESSA? No. The Title III teacher language proficiency requirement only applies to a teacher directly employed to serve non-public school ELs. The district must follow state law in determining the applicable state licensure and certification requirements for its employee contracts. Good question. What about this one? Can a district use Title III funds to pay for a non-public school teacher's tuition leading to certification? The non-public school would like to use program funds to defray the cost of a teacher gaining EL certification. A district should, in carrying out its responsibility to providing services to a non-public school teacher, establish policies that, for reasons of effectiveness, quality, costs, and other relevant factors, favor certain kinds of courses or professional development over others. A district cannot make a blanket rule that forbids non-public school teachers from receiving certain forms of professional development. All right, so now that we've heard questions from the field, let's go over some resources that are available under Title III. As you can see, the United States Department of Education provides many resources for us. So you can look at this list and see some non-regulatory guidance that are related to all title programs and specifically Title III. Any questions? Please feel free to review this presentation and webinar. And if you have any questions about Title III that you think were not addressed in this webinar, do not hesitate to give me a call or send me an email. Again, here's my contact information right here. My name is Danny Bounds, and again, I'm the Federal Programs Ombudsman on behalf of the Division of Federal Programs and Oversight. My number is 615-917-3465. And as you can see, my email address is danny.bounds@tn.gov. And I want to thank you for taking out the time to listening to this webinar regarding Title III Part A. Also, please share your feedback. Here's a link to our survey. In this survey, you'll be able to provide any feedback that you think is necessary on this presentation on behalf of Federal Programs and Oversight in the Tennessee Department of Education. I want to thank you for coming, and I hope you have a great day.